Thank you, Kit. That was really wonderful. Kit Holmes was one of the individuals that we were looking at for supporting us with our music on Sunday mornings. Good morning. Okay, what was that? I think we got it under control. I'm so happy to be with you here this morning. I'm very excited. Today is the last Sunday of the month. We're closing in on this really powerful topic of stepping into the unknown, and we're having our annual meeting after the service today. And what that means is that we pull our membership together at least once a year, sometimes more often, and we look at the year that has just ended, and we look at where we've been, and we begin to look to where we want to go, and we talk about and celebrate our volunteers and our leadership. And so I hope that you'll join us for that. Now, it's important to know that it is going to be both on Zoom, and you can also join us here in the sanctuary. But if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, we won't be broadcasting it, so you'll have to hop on Zoom or hop on over. So today I have the topic today of talking to you about stepping out and stepping in, and I want to start with this powerful quote by Joseph Campbell. And Joseph writes, "We must be willing to let go of the life we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us." Maybe some of you have heard that before. It's very profound. And it made me reflect on the planning that I was doing in late 2019 and into 2020. And I had all kinds of really great things planned for this community. We were going to venture out into live streaming. We'd never done that before. And oftentimes when you put together a plan, you have some steps to that plan. And so as I was thinking about how we would live stream, nowhere in my plan was a worldwide pandemic where we would all have to be home and we could have to close the center and we would not be able to be together for months at a time. It was nowhere in my plan. And yet here we are, standing here 15 months later, and we're live streaming. And we're doing it with quite a bit of finesse, I'm told, by my colleagues. And it just goes to show you that, as Joseph Campbell said, we must be willing to let go of the life that we plan so that we can step into the life that is waiting for us. I know that as we've moved through this thing called COVID and pandemic and sheltering in place, that a lot of things have seemed to contract. A lot of things have changed. We've had to change the way we're doing things. And we don't know what is necessarily going to be temporary and what will be some of the changes that we might walk out into whatever the new normal is. I'm pretty sure we haven't arrived at it yet, but we're moving closer to it. And while we're still in the weeds with this worldwide pandemic, we have adjusted, have we not? We have learned how to wear our masks. We have learned how to take care of and protect each other from a disease that is deadly to some. We have learned how to function in a world that doesn't look anything like it did 2 years ago. And we're very adaptable. We're very adaptable. I remember the first time I had to walk out in the world and go grocery shopping from the shelter in place. Do you remember? Do you remember looking around at all the people with masks on? I remember wanting to cry. I remember how painful it was to think that I couldn't see your smile, that I couldn't smile back to you, that I couldn't connect with you in the ways that I'm used to connecting with people. And yet, if I go into a store now, it's absolutely easy for me to put my mask on, and I've learned how to, instead of connecting with you through a smile, I've learned how to connect with you through the look in your eyes. We adapt. We begin to learn how to move through things, and it is through that adaptation that we begin to create. And despite this pandemic, despite this shelter in place, despite all the things that we've been through, what I still know to be true is that human beings are meant to connect and be together. We are not designed to live in isolation away from each other. We are designed to be together, to live in community. And so as we begin to look at this idea of the theme for our annual meeting is calling us home, it is time for us to think about what it's going to be like to walk out into the world and to be together again and to learn how to do things in community again. It's time to start thinking about coming home. And I am reminded of one of my favorite parables, the prodigal child, or as some might know it, the prodigal son. And it's a story about a father who gives the inheritance to his two children early, and one decides to take his money and party. So he goes out into the world and he's partying, he's having a good time, and he's spending money like nothing, and it's just sifting through his hands, and then suddenly he finds that he doesn't have any money anymore, and he has to take a job as a servant and work really hard to make his way. And it's a humbling experience for him, and he finally decides to go back home, and his father receives him with open arms and treats him like a king. Now, I know that the parables are metaphors. They're teaching stories that carry great wisdom for us. And they had to be told in parables because at that time in civilization, humankind couldn't really grasp the depth of the meaning. And so when we look at the story of the prodigal child, what I see is a great resonance for a lot of what I'm personally going through, what I'm witnessing other people going through. I know that we're part of this beautiful philosophy called science of mind. And in this philosophy, we know that we are given everything. Just like the prodigal child, we are given everything right from the start. And we take our birthright, we take the gifts and the things that we're given, and oftentimes our human nature is to look outside ourselves, to look at where we can take these gifts out into the world, where we can spend, where we can acquire, where we can do, where we can get. And if you're like me and you found yourself in the grind of the day-to-day, out there making your way, it's easy to get caught up in the process, like the prodigal son who was out in the world and having a good time. He found that at some point, instead of being served by the material world, he had to serve it. And so that part of the story is a reflection on how the material world, there is nothing wrong with the material world. There is nothing wrong with having money. There's nothing wrong with having things. But when we get too attached to them, when we try to make them serve us, in the end, we will end up serving them. And in my own case, I found myself as a business owner, as a provider, as a consumer. It left me longing and wanting more. And it brought me to this place of turning my attention from the outer world to the inner world so that I could come home to a greater understanding of who I was and who I was meant to be. A greater sense of my purpose. And maybe if you're sitting here today in the sanctuary, or if you're watching from the comfort of your home, you have had some experience like this, where you've been chasing the American dream through a job or a relationship or things, and you found yourself in a place where it was no longer serving you, but you were serving it. And you found yourself longing for something more. I have sneaking suspicion that you all know what I'm talking about. The problem that I see is that our culture is has this backwards wiring. We've crossed our wires somehow, where we are told through the commercials, through the consumerism, through the world that we live in, that the goal is somewhere out there. That there's some purpose that we must be doing. There must be something that we have to do to live out our purpose. And yet what I know about purpose is that it's not about the purpose that is everlasting, the purpose that will carry you through the rest of your life, the purpose that will continue to serve you and give to you. It's not a purpose about doing something, it's a purpose about being something. I have a personal purpose that I have come to really use as my true north, and my purpose is to reveal love. And so when I find myself in challenges, when I find myself in difficult places, just like everybody else, I'm going to get a little lost at first. I'm going to be a little disoriented. I'm going to be trying to figure out what's going on. But it is my purpose that when I continue to move towards it over and over again, when I continue to reinforce it, that brings me up to what is the right action for me. I had the opportunity to go back east, where I'm from. Many of you know that I moved here to California almost 4 years ago after living on the East Coast for 45 years. And I still owned a home there, and I finally put it up for sale, and it's under contract, and I needed to go home to take care of some things. I had left a lot of stuff in the attic, and I'd left a lot of stuff in the garage. And those metaphysicians in the audience are probably already with me with the metaphor here about going home to clean out the attic and clean out the garage. And so it stirred up some things for me. It definitely stirred up some things for me. And I had some situations that came up that I didn't have any control over, and I was feeling a little hopeless and disheartened, and I started to sink into that place of feeling like, the world was against me as opposed to for me. And I started to remember some of those old lies that I had let go of a long time ago, of unworthiness and not being good enough. And yet, I have been practicing this purpose that I have to reveal love for quite some time. And so there was something within me that called me back to that purpose, and I began to move my mind and attention to that purpose, and something kind of magical happened in that I went to bed feeling one way, and I woke up absolutely grounded and centered in my purpose again, clear about who I am and who I've come here to be. And that happens, like the quote that we read at the beginning of our spiritual practice, that happens for me, and I believe it will happen for you, when the wave remembers it's part of the ocean. When I remembered that I was part of love, when I remembered who I decided I wanted to be, well, the power of that lie, the power of the drama that was going on, it's gone. It's absolutely like throwing water on a hot sidewalk. It completely evaporated. It has no more power over me. And yet 24 hours before, I was thinking of quitting my job and moving back east. And I had the big drama of all the things that were coming up and the feelings that were happening. And how does it happen that I can move from that place of despondence to that place of joy? Because I know who I am and who I've come here to be, and I continue to use that as a true north. We're a community in a vacation town, right? So there's a lot of people who come here to chill. And when we talk about purpose, they think, well, I'm not in the grind anymore. I don't really need to pay attention to, I don't need to go out and find my purpose. Well, I'm going to challenge you that you do. And it isn't a purpose like the worldly idea of a purpose about getting this job or this title or this paycheck or this bank balance. It's a purpose about who you want to walk out your days as, so that you can walk it out with with power and with potency. And Sky sitting in front of me, and I know her purpose is joy. Anybody who knows Sky knows her purpose is joy. And so I encourage you to think about your purpose, something that is so high level that it can never be fully fulfilled, and that it will continually serve you as you serve it in a perfect balance of giving and receiving. Wonderful, high, beautiful words talking about purpose. And then you're going to walk out this door with your mask, wondering who's vaccinated and who's not vaccinated, wondering, when you're going to be able to be together again. All that stuff is still waiting for us. And what I've recognized in the last 15 months is that we've been bombarded with fear. We've been bombarded about all the things we really need to be afraid of. And somebody wise, many people wise, have said that fear is false evidence appearing real. And so when we go out into the world and we begin to watch the news or read the paper or talk to the friend down the street, and they start to talk about all the things that we need to be fearing for our life for, it's our job to remember that this is false evidence appearing real. Dr. Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of our movement, wrote a book called The Science of Mind, and in it, he describes a 3-step process for dealing with fear. He says that we're going to be faced with fear. That's part of the human experience. But that the first step that we have to do is to remember what we really have faith in, to extract our faith from the fear, and then to call ourselves back home to what it is that we believe. The second step that he says is that we then need to know, and that's the embodiment of faith, where we take the things that we believe in and the things that we have faith in, and we drop into an embodied knowing so that it is a place that we react and respond from. And then the third place that he tells us that we'll go is to love, because love is the expression of faith. It is we start with the faith and cultivating that which we want to believe in. We do that intentionally and consciously. We know it, we embody it, and then we can't help but express it. And that's the love part. When we express what we know, it is the expression of our good. And so when we can begin to know that there's this kind of a system that we have about being human, right? We're gonna have to face our fears. We're gonna have to look at those things that feel like life is imploding on itself, and then extract our power from them, not pretend they're not there. Because if you pretend it's not there, it's just going to come back. You have to face it. I have to face the things that I'm afraid of. I have to face those things that tell me that the drama is real, that I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy. I have to face those things, and I face them, and I meet them with my faith and my knowing and my love. And when I can meet them with that, then I am brought home, if you will, back into my heart, back into the place of my being, back into my purpose, back into the heart of our divine self that is wanting us to express from that highest level. And like the prodigal child, we come home again. And like the prodigal child, we are greeted with open arms. And we are given everything again because we remember who we are and who we've come here to be. It's been a tough 15 months for a lot of us, but what I know is that our community is still standing strong. We still have this wonderful sanctuary. We still have many of you that have been supporting us. Our leadership is continuing to support us. We are turning our attention now to coming home. And so I hope that you'll join us today for our annual meeting. I hope that wherever you are, that you will turn towards home and join us once again here at Centers for Spiritual Living Santa Cruz. It has been my honor to be with you here this morning, to reflect with you, to remind you that you too are loved and that you too are always welcome. Thank you very much. And so it's time to do what we do, which is to do spiritual mind treatment and affirmative prayer. And so if you'll join me, I want to start actually with a wonderful quote. It was actually in your sacred covenant that brought me here to this center 4 years ago, and it's a quote by Krishnamurti. So if you'll close your eyes and take a breath and hear these words. It is love alone that leads to right action. What brings order in the world is to love and let love do what it will. And so from that place of absolute trust, trusting that we are always guided, guarded, and directed, that there is a power and a presence that is forever animating life. It is moving in, as, and through each one of us. It knows that highest good, that highest potential that exists in all humanity and all life. And so we allow ourselves to remember our unity with it. We remember that we are one. We are one with love. We are one with beauty. We are one with joy. We are one with wholeness and freedom. We are one with all these perfect qualities. And in this oneness, we allow ourselves to be that great receptor, the repository of the good that wants to express itself here in the world. And so I know for each one, as we continue to walk out our days, as we continue to look towards what it is we want to create out of this stirring up that has happened here in the world, I trust that each one is illuminated by purpose. That each one is illuminated by who they want to be. That even in the great unknowingness, that we can trust that it is purpose that will lead us, and it was purpose that will guide us, and it will be purpose that will inform our response to the world as it continues to meet us with its little ideas, with its attachment to things. I trust for each one of us that there is a greater good that is absolutely calling us forward, and that each one welcomes who they have come here to be, and each one welcomes walking that out with power and with presence. I'm so grateful to know this highest truth for each one. I am so grateful that we are forever coming home to love, coming home to purpose, coming home to power, and that there's nothing that can truly stand in the way of that. It is with an open and surrendered heart that I simply locate this prayer in the law, and I know it is the law that carries it forward. And I give great thanks for all that has transpired, and all that is, and all that will be, for I know that this too is God, this too is good. And I keep my heart open to it. And we anchor this prayer as we anchor every prayer by saying together, and so it is.